Good morning, good day. And this is truly a wonderful day here. Beautiful day. With spring just bursting out all over. And spring, new life, from Easter. From the second Sunday of Easter now that we celebrate. Looking forward to that. First of all, the first reading from the Acts of the Apostles, chapter 2, verses 42 to 47. I find this fascinating. Going down a couple verses, all who believed were together and had all things in common. They would sell their property and possessions and divide them among all according to one's needs. Each day they devoted themselves to meeting together in the temple area and to breaking bread in their homes. They ate their meals with exultation and sincerity of heart, praising God and enjoying favor with all the people. And every day the Lord added to their number those who were being saved. The Lord added. The Lord's action is always very important because He pours grace into people and moves us. We have faith because if we have the eyes of faith, we could see God's actions and know that the Lord is truly present. This is a theme that's going to be present throughout all of Christianity. Knowing that God is there, yet not actually physically seeing Him. But because we're a people of faith, we could recognize God's action, even though He does it in an invisible way. Going on to the gospel. Now, in all of these things, it would really be good if we had our scriptures available. One of the little side notes here is 1 Corinthians chapter 16, the beginning section there, where they are having a collection for the saints in Jerusalem. Well, we just read that section there. The people really basically had stopped working. They shared everything in common. What they were waiting for was the second coming of Jesus, when they expected Him to come very soon after Easter, and that would be the end of the world. Of course, that did not happen, but it led to their impoverishment, and they had to be supported by the new Christians that Paul was converting in various other parts of the world. In the gospel reading, John, now here it's really good if you opened up to the Gospel of John, chapter 20, because everything runs in sequence. The timeline that John the Evangelist uses is very different than the synoptics, the Gospels for Mark, Matthew, and Luke. Here, chapter 20, verse 1, early in the morning on the first day of the week. Here is Mary Magdalene goes to the tomb. Now, our verse is verse 19. We're still on the same day in verse 19. On the evening of that first day of the week but now it's not early morning, it's evening. Even though the disciples had locked the doors of the place where they were for fear of the Jews, Jesus came and stood before them the same day. Which day? It's really Easter Day. John's timeline, as I said, is different than the synoptics. He says to them, "Peace be with you." What a contrast. Without the Lord, just on their own, they're in fear. They're not at peace. But when the Lord comes, there's peace and joy. In our own lives, we can find that when we are just simply in ourselves, we have worry, we have fear, we have upset. But when we're in the Lord, there is peace, there is joy, there is a sense of security, because we're living in our faith in the all-powerful God. In His strength, we're able to have peace, have joy, have security. Continuing on there, they lock the doors because they were still in themselves. They lived in that fear of, after all, the Jews had put Jesus to death. They could easily put the rest of the community to death. But death in Christianity loses its sting, loses its meaning. It's just a transition. Now, in John's Gospel, there in verses 22, 23, gives them the Holy Spirit. Receive the Holy Spirit, and then the power of the Holy Spirit to forgive sins. In the Synoptics, Pentecost, the Holy Spirit comes much later. But in John's Gospel, the gift of the Holy Spirit comes right on Easter Day itself. Still reaching a little further into the Scriptures, into chapter 20, John's chapter 20. They talk in verse 24, Thomas refuses to believe. He hasn't seen Jesus himself, so he refuses to believe that he's really resurrected. Verse 26, a week later, that's this Sunday, the Sunday after Easter Sunday, the disciples were once more in the room. This time Thomas was with them. Despite the locked doors, Jesus came and stood before them. Peace be with you. And then he tells Thomas, you need physical evidence? Well, here I am. Test me. Put your finger in my wounds. Thomas responds, more than likely. It doesn't say he actually touches Jesus, but he believes. And his belief here is from seeing. It's not a belief based on faith. It's a belief based on knowledge. When you actually can go up and grab a hold of something, you don't have to have faith that it's there. You've touched it. You know it's there. The difference with faith that's belief that's based on faith is I don't actually see it. I don't actually touch it. But nonetheless, I believe despite the fact that I can't come to know it by actually feeling it and touching it. That's the kind of faith we live in. That's the kind of faith we're challenged to live in. Jesus then says to Thomas, you became a believer because you saw me. Blessed are they who have not seen and yet have believed. Who believe not on knowledge, but believe on faith. Jesus performed many other signs as well. Signs not recorded there. The Scriptures are one of many ways in which God can touch us, contact us. God, the Father, Jesus, the Son, gives us the presence of the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit utilizes many ways in which to bring God's presence to us, in which to make known God's will to us. He can do it through the authority of the church. He can do it indirectly by other people in our lives. They don't have to be believers, could be believers. But because we're people of faith, we can recognize that was the voice of God coming to me. If we live every day in the Spirit, we get the gift of being discernment, get the gift of recognizing the Lord has just, through this one or that one, this manner or that manner, the Lord has touched me, has come to me. The Holy Spirit can come any way He desires. That's up to the Holy Spirit. For us, we must be people who are wide awake in the Lord, able to recognize His presence. This same theme is brought up once again in the second reading. 1 Peter chapter 1, verses 3 to 9, toward the end there. Although you have not seen him, you love him. Even though you do not see him now, yet believe in him. You rejoice with an indescribable and glorious joy as you attain the goal of your faith, the salvation of souls. The community goes out and helps bring others in. Recognizing, living in the presence of the God we cannot see. Growing in our faith. And every day, more and more able to find him. Because the Lord reveals him more and more. Because our faith grows more and more. And we come to know him, come to recognize him, never needing to actually physically see him. Because our faith daily grows. And our closeness to the Lord daily grows. God bless you in this wonderful adventure of living in the Lord daily.